Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 4th meeting of the Pitt County Schools Board of Education. At this time, I'd like to formally call this meeting to order. At this time, I would ask that Judge David Leach come forward for the swearing in of new board member, Mr. Robert Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do something as a part of official duties that doesn't tick off anybody, and that's a rare occasion for me. But I'm happy to perform this, and Mr. Moore, if you're ready to take the oath.
I'm ready.
I'll ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Robert Moore,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as member of the Pitt County Board of Education.
as member of the Pitt County Board of Education.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Bless you.
Now I'm going to ask you to sign in, and then you're official.
This will be one of my best signatures.
Why don't we get another copy?
Okay.
Mr. Moore, did you have members of your family that were here with you this evening?
Yes, I do.
If you would like to have them come forward, we'd like to recognize them for being here as well.
I don't think they were thinking of that, but yes, I will. Thank you. Good.
Do you want to have your picture made with them?
My wife, Celestine Moore, and my sister-in-law, Jacqueline Streeter. So you want to...
Let's see.
Why did Mark get down there?
Well,
Marcia, let's get one with Judge Leach
Sure.
and
Right
with
here.
the board
Right here
chair.
by.
Right, Mark.
And then one with Mark.
Ready? I'm going to get one more.
Well, let me be the first one to extend the
Okay,
hand of fellowship.
thank
there.
you.
Welcome.
I appreciate
Welcome
that.
to the board.
Thank you.
Do
Appreciate
that
it.
again, Mark.
And make it look, that's good.
Good camera. Yes, can I do a little,
Just to say
this first, affirm?
Sir, please.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the Pitt County Board of Education, and all at-large residents of Pitt County. I'm very happy to be here with you today to receive this appointed seat. I feel honored and humbled that you should give this important position to someone like me. Please let me say thank you. I believe this seat is a recognition of the true value of ever learning, humanity, love, and compassion, which I try to live, which is according to the Bible. I want to say thank you for all of you for the job that you've done in the past to help us realize the current operation of the Pitt County school system. I accept this position with profound gratitude on behalf of all those who struggle for a better education and work for world peace. I accept it as a tribute to the man Bishop Ralph Love, who spent 22 years working for higher quality of education for people in Pitt County and other counties in North Carolina. And of course, I accept it on behalf of the people of Pitt County. I pray for all of us that together we succeed in building a better Pitt County school system through human understanding and love, and that in doing so, we attain all the goals that we have set forth for this school session and other school sessions. Thank you, and God bless the Pitt County school system.
Thank you.
Good deal.
It work.
Mr. Moore?
Okay.
As soon as Mr. Moore is seated, we will have roll call. I trust Ms. Owens or Mr. Forrest will assist him with that process. if needed.
Yeah. What you gotta do here? Just hit yes. And hit confirm with your button right there. Let's see how good. Yeah, you voting that you here present.
Okay, good. Thank you.
See what kind of teacher I am.
Normally, it will show in process. Do we know what's,
Could be my bad. Do a roll call.
We might have to use the old timey way.
Do
Mr.
it
Chairman.
again?
It worked earlier.
by a simple glance, it would appear that we have a full membership tonight and present, so if the electronic means does not work, we will note in the rolls that all members are present, as well as the Secretary to the Board, the Superintendent, Dr. Emery. At this time, Ms. Williams, if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Forbes, if you'd lead us in a moment of silence.
Yes, if we could remember all of our parents and students and faculty, and continue to remember Bishop Love and his help, and all the extended families of our employees, as well as Mr. Robert Moore. We appreciate you. And let's have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Under routine business, Section A, adjustments to the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor, if you would please vote affirmative at this time.
Let's see if it works.
Mr. Chair, I think we need to go to school here tonight.
Very good. It's been motioned by Mr. Forrest, been seconded by Ms. Owens. No discussion being seen. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
It was Mildred.
I'm sorry,
And
Ms.
Forbes.
Council and Mr.
Forbes.
Forbes.
Where are you getting Forrest from?
We're so much
When
alike.
it's something good, it's Mr. Forrest. That's right.
Under public expression, I do have 3 individuals that are signed up to speak tonight. Ms. McLaughlin, has there been any further individuals since that time? We have 3 tonight. The first individual that is to speak is Ms. Kathy Herring, a parent within the district. Ms. Herring, if you'd come forward, please. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Again, my name is Kathy Herring. I'm at 1807 Circle Drive here in Greenville. I'm a parent of 3 children in the school system, and I've served in a number of capacities as a volunteer in our schools and with other education issues. I want to thank you for the time to be here tonight. Many of you already know that I support the reduction in the size of our Board of Education, the length of term, and the time lag between election and taking office. I would like to thank Representative Brian Brown for showing leadership on this very heated issue after listening to the concerns of his constituents. There are many reasons why I feel this reduction is important. It will lead to more transparency and accountability, encourage a broader range of our citizens to run for this office, and increase the chance that the Board of Education can act with a system-wide vision for our schools. Furthermore, I'm here tonight to ask you to reach out to the stakeholders in this community and gather their feedback. I ask each of you to get out into your schools, your churches, your community centers, your businesses, and ask how they feel about this issue. I also ask you to hold a public listening session or a public hearing on this legislation. This issue has divided our county for too long and needs to be resolved now. If all the stakeholders are allowed to have a voice and the issue is debated in a public forum, we could put this issue to rest and focus on what is best for the students in our district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Herring. Appreciate that. Next individual that is registered to speak is Phil Eichschlager. Mr. Eichschlager.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Wichard, board members, and Superintendent Emery. I'm Phil Eichschlager, Chairman of the Greenville Pitt County Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here this evening. The Greenville Pitt County Chamber of Commerce has for years been a strong advocate for public schools. We believe that education is extremely important to our community's economic development potential, as our future workforce is sitting in the classroom today. Education is a top priority among our 1,000 members, and the Chamber has a track record of being involved to help address areas of concerns in our school. We've always worked diligently to be part of the solution and to move our education forward to the next level. We are proud to have business engage in education through our OASIS program, our education cabinet, and our teen leadership program. Our efforts in education are sincere, and the impact is countywide. In February of 2000, our then chairman, Dan Nichols, came before you to ask for your support to reduce the size of this board to 9 members, reduce the terms from 6 years to 4 years, and to have the newly elected members take office 30 days after election. This has been the Chamber's legislative position from the start. As most of you know, the Chamber chose to support Senate Bill 260 in 2011, which was introduced by Senator Lewis Pitt. The bill would have reduced the size of the board to 7 and reduced the terms to 4 years. Senate Bill 260 was approved by the North Carolina General Assembly in June of 2011, but was not granted pre-clearance by the United States Department of Justice. I think it is important to note that during the legislative session, it was clear that there was widespread support for changing the governance structure on the school board. Our legislators heard from hundreds of people in writing and via phone who expressed support. Now in 2013, the Chamber's Issues Committee and Board of Directors support Representative Brian Brown's decision to introduce new legislation during the current session. And we have shared our specific position with him on this matter. Therefore, we are here tonight to share our recommendations with you and to ask for your leadership in making a change in the governing structure of this critically important public board. Our 3 positions, as outlined in our legislative paper, are number 1, to shorten the term for the school board members from 6 years to 4 years, to reduce the number of school board members from 12 to 9, 1 from each of the 6 districts, and 3 super districts, the same configuration as our county commissioners. And number 3, have school board members take office 30 days after their election to eliminate the current unnecessary gap in timing. The conversation of the need to streamline the governance structure for our school dates back to the consolidation of the city and county school systems. As no one wanted to give up their seat at that time, some 15 sitting board members of the 2 systems formed the new board. A reduction to 12 occurred a few years later, but the contemplated reduction to a school board of 9 never occurred. We believe the current structure of 2 members per district has created territorial mindsets and a lack of cohesiveness on many occasions. For too long now, our community has watched a divided school board, which has created negative energy and much concern. We believe that a smaller board will create better focus and more effective decision-making. It will also alleviate dissension among members and create a better opportunity for consensus building. Some of you included in your platforms when you ran for the board that you would support a reduction in the number of school board members. We ask you to honor that commitment. As you know, Pitt County has the largest school board in North Carolina. Even the 2 largest systems in Wake and Mecklenburg have 9 members. It's clear in this case we believe that more does not necessarily mean better. For a community with resources like ours, our achievement source should be the strongest in the state. Our vision, like yours, is to build the most advanced school system in the state for our children that will ensure that all students master the skills necessary for success as lifelong earners in our rapidly changing world. Our business community stands ready to work with Pitt County Schools and this board to build a workforce for the future that will provide the intellectual capital needed in today's competitive environment, not only to support and expand our existing economic infrastructure, but to attract new business expansion to our region. Your leadership and governance is extremely important in driving the change needed for this process. We're asking you to send a resolution to our legislative delegation supporting the 3 changes outlined tonight and the legislation that will be introduced by Representative Brian Brown. We're asking you again to take the lead and to make the tough decisions needed to move us forward for our children and the future economic vitality of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Auslager. Next individual that's registered to speak is the Honorable Mayor of Ayden, Steve Tripp.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, I want to say thank you for what you do. You do an outstanding job. Benji and Worth, thank you for representing Ayden in the way we're very proud of. Mr. Chair, you like your grandfather, Barry Ballreed, the former mayor of Ayden, who I admire dearly, is one of our great citizens of Ayden. He's done a lot of great things for our community, and it's obvious that the city was painted well with you. So appreciate that. Mr. Moore, welcome.
Thank you.
You're on a great journey.
Yes, sir.
Some exciting times and some great opportunities. I come tonight on behalf of myself, and as the mayor of Ayden. As a former member of this board, I was a member of this board when we merged from Pitt County Schools to Greenville City Schools. And back during that time, that was almost 25 years ago, Mark Barber was the chair of our board and did an outstanding job leading us to that merger. And is a outstanding citizen of our community and person who I want to mimic in my life. So he means a lot to me. And the conversation back then was one of county and city, one of confrontation, one of separation, and not one of unity, except at the school board level, because the unity is the child. See, no child in Pitt County from 1 mile from each other or 20 miles from each other should have a different education. The county, with the great resource that we have in place, that should not be that's unheard of. That should not happen. And back 25 years ago, it was happening. So it was the leadership of the 2 boards decided to come together and stop it, and made a bold move. I think it was a hero move, uniting the systems together. And look at the results. Look back where we are today and how we progress and how you progress and how you made this school system probably one of the best in the state of North Carolina. And we're very grateful for that. But 25 years ago, I did something that was unfinished, and tonight I want to finish it up. Being on this board, when we united, it was about stabilization. And that's why we had a large board member, a board group, which caused the controversy. And tried to have a large number to stabilize, to bring some stability. And see, it was my vision at that time in 4 or 5 years that school board would be reduced. Because I've served on school board membership of 8 members. And I served on school board member, I thought it was 12 back in the day, could have been 15. But it was large and it was cumbersome, it was hard to maneuver, it's hard to communicate, it's hard being cohesive when a large school size, membership that size. So it was my vision in 4 years that it would be reduced to 9 members, or the number that you see fit. So I'm asking for your consideration tonight to reduce the size of the board to the vision I thought the board should have been. And I apologize for not taking the further step, but at the time it was the right step. I don't apologize for the merger. It was great that we did. There's some people who doubt that today in my community. Was that decision I would have made 25, if I had looked ahead now where I'm at today, would I make that same decision? And frankly, yes, I would. No hesitation. But it's up to us as responsible citizens to reduce it to where it needs to be. And I'll leave that to your hands because you've done such a great job. So with that said, I want to say thank you. You've done a great job for my community. I'm very proud of what you do, and I'm very proud to say that Pitt County School is in my district, it's in my school area. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your comments. Under consent items, number 7, do we have a motion? I'm sorry. Missed that in my notes. Next section is Spotlight on Teaching and Learning, Positive Changes for Student Achievement. Mr. Mike King, Jennifer James, Willie Joyner, and Mary Carson, if you would please come forward. Welcome to each of you. Glad you could be here with us tonight.
Good evening, Board Chair, Board of Education, Dr. Emery. Thank you all for inviting us up here to share a little about what we do at North Pitt. This evening, we're going to share with you some things that we've put in place, some programs and processes that we have at North Pitt that we feel that are allowing North Pitt to grow and growing our students. A couple programs and processes before we get going. I want to introduce Ms. Jennifer James, our assistant principal, Mr. Willie Joyner, our other assistant principal, and Ms. Mary Carson, who is a math teacher in her 3rd year at North Pitt. Some of the processes that we put in place at North Pitt to help our children grow and to help our teachers grow is a flex time period to extend instructional time within the school day. All 3 SIG schools principals got together and brainstormed how we could make it work for all 3 schools, and our 3 schools have come together to add an additional 30 minutes of a remediation or enrichment or basic skills time within our day. We've built in an extended semester that carries into the summer programs into the middle of June, and we've also incorporated a Guiding Good Choices class for our parents, as well as our students who have excessive absences, with our attendance specialist and our graduation coach seeking out these individuals and bringing them to our school. We're going to talk about a couple things today. We're going to talk about data talks and our PLCs and how our teachers are collaborating to increase instruction and how they're using data to move forward. One thing I want you to see is our algebra scores have gone up. That's why we brought Ms. Carson here, because she's a part of that. With this and some of this flex time with our extended semester, if you look from 2011 to 2012, our proficiency has increased a total of 14% in 1 year. And our growth has increased an average of 12.5% in the course of 1 year. Not only is our proficiency and our growth increasing, our graduation rate has increased over 3 years as well. If you look in 2008-9, our graduation rate was 54.3%, and last year in 2011-2012 was 62.59%, a total growth of 8.29% over the course of 4 years. And for North Pitt, that's tremendous growth of allowing our students to graduate from North Pitt. And our 19-year-old 21 credit diploma also helped with that, and I appreciate y'all's support with that as well. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jennifer James, our assistant principal, to talk a little about the process it took to get our teachers where they are today.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak and to spotlight North Pitt. We are extremely proud of what we're doing at North Pitt, so it's great to be able to come and be spotlighted and to let our teachers shine with what we're doing at North Pitt High School. On this slide here, what you will see is what we call the connecting the dots. It's development of teacher success. In the middle circle, you will see what came out of the school improvement grant with the comprehensive needs assessment. Our school leadership team decided that we really needed to work on improving our high quality instruction in the building. And so around this, you will see the different strategies that we are implementing within the school beginning last year to make sure that we are increasing our high quality instruction. The strategies you see are strategies that drive our school improvement plan and InduStar, and they are ongoing and connected, therefore why we call it connecting the dots. Today, we're going to focus on 3 of the strategies that we feel at North Pitt High School have had the most impact on our students and also our teachers. The first one is our professional development. Beginning last year, we began to tailor our professional development for our teachers. We spent a lot of time on Standard 4 of the evaluation instrument. We really wanted our teachers to understand what facilitating instruction looked like in the classroom, so we spent time on that. We did not stop last year. We continued this year to work on that professional development. We have professional development sessions every Thursday for the first 45 minutes of our teachers' planning. Some of those are mandatory and some of those are optional for our teachers, so we try to differentiate the professional development. Our current focus for our professional development is implementing Common Core and North Carolina Essential Standards. It is also collecting, understanding, and utilizing data within the classroom. We're doing professional development on assessments. Developing students to be able to think critically is another one of our professional developments, and the last one is technology. The second strategy that we're focusing on, and Ms. Carson's going to share a lot more about this with you all, is our professional learning communities, our PLCs. We're very proud of the success that we've had with our PLCs. Last school year, we started the PLCs with English, Algebra 1, and biology. That would have been English 1. We saw some success through our PLCs. The biggest success came in our Algebra 1 PLCs through the help of our math instructional coach, and for all the teachers in that PLC, they worked very hard. We saw major growth from our students, which we weren't necessarily expecting at the beginning of the year, but because of the work that they did in the PLCs, focusing on student learning and on data, we saw that major increase in growth. That led us to wanting to have the PLC model for our entire school. We came to county office. We asked for permission to utilize that PLC model. They granted us that permission, and that is what we're using this year for all of our teachers that have core classes and some electives. Our teachers meet for 45 minutes on Tuesdays and are in their PLCs. They're looking at data and they're looking at instructional strategies of what they can do best for their students. Our third and final strategy we'll focus on this evening are our data talks and our data blueprints. We think it's really important to share data with our teachers, and so we make sure to do that with our SAT scores, PSAT scores, ACT, EOC scores, CTE scores. We share all of that with our teachers. The second is the data blueprint template that we have. All of our teachers are expected to import or input their data, their student data, into a template that we created. And this helps our teachers to have a holistic view of their data so that they can see their students and can understand the data and what they need to do and how to improve instructional strategies for the students. Ms. Carson is going to share a little bit more with you all about our data blueprints, about flex time, and about our PLCs and how they were able to have such success last year and also into this school year.
Hey, thank you. I started teaching 2 years ago, and it was the first year of the grant. And I would say that the PLCs has always been a great thing, but it started out to be very rough. When we began, we got together, and our instructional coach guided us into how to, we had personality tests to see what worked for us in our PLCs, what didn't work. We made ground rules. And then in our PLCs, we got together and we looked at EVA scores to classify our students. We put them in the red, green, and yellow zones. And we had common assessments where we used technology, CPS clickers, to grade our tests and look at questions based on what questions were missed, what ones, what things that we taught worked, what things didn't work. And in our PLCs, we looked at these questions, and so maybe one teacher taught a certain particular question, the percent was a lot higher than maybe my class. So we would switch, topics. One teacher might teach something better than I taught it. So we would switch classes, and the other teacher would teach that subject, and we would work on things after school, things that didn't work in the class. We'd work on it after school, and we talked about data. That was the main thing. We didn't used to talk about data when we first started teaching, but after this, we talked about data. And I would say this year we've gotten even more experience with the PLCs. We meet once a week, and I would say every day I meet with one of my other teachers. We have a common planning. We talk about what things are working in our class, what things aren't working, and we adjust it based on what the kids need. So I'm going to give it back to Mr. King.
I am the new kid on the block at North Pitt High School. I came to work there at the beginning of this school year, and I just want to say I really wanted to see curriculum and instruction at its best. And thanks to the board, Dr. Emery, I have seen just that. North Pitt curriculum and instruction has been the focus since day one that I stepped into the building. Every administrative meeting that we've had, we deal a lot with curriculum and instruction. The data blueprints, making sure that teachers understand how to use the data to drive instruction. all those kinds of things. And not only that, as I've talked to a lot of our teachers in post-conferences, and that sort of thing, they're not just using the data blueprints, they're using websites such as Insight 360, the CPS systems, Kia, all those programs, those websites, to disaggregate data and to look at, how they can strengthen their instruction by looking at, which questions students are missing the most so that they can focus their instruction. It's been a really good experience for me to look at curriculum and instruction, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
In closing tonight, we're going to kind of put it all together. That was a lot in a short amount of time, and we're going to put it all together in 3 ways that we triangulate this with our teachers. Is that they teach in the classroom, they figure out what's going on in the classroom, they assess within the classroom. From that, they look in their PLCs at the data blueprints, and then from the data blueprints and the common assessments and identifying who, what teacher, or how they're going to reteach the skills that need to be retaught or the basic skills that they need to go back that the kids might not understand the content, they look at that in their PLC, and they use that conversation into their flex time. If you look, the triangulation on the screen, that it moves from teaching to PLC to our flex time, and there is no one specific arrow that flows in a cycle. It goes back and forth, and that's the communication and the collaboration that we've brought together amongst our teachers, amongst our administration. They invite us into their PLCs. We get input from them through the SIT team and through faculty meetings, and we meet as an administrative team once a week to talk about how can we improve curriculum instruction at North Pitt and what's in the best interest of our students. So with that being said, that's how we do it at North Pitt. That is our plan, and I want to thank you all. I want to thank the central office staff, Dr. Emery, and the Board of Education for supporting us through this and making these changes at North Pitt so we can increase our achievement of our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. King.
Good deal.
Others? It's always wonderful to hear of the many positive things going on in the school system, especially at North Pitt High School. Under consent items, there are 3 sections there for consideration. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Mrs. Kamnitz, seconded by Mrs. Owens. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Is the electronic system working, Ms. McGuire?
If you try roll call again, it should be working.
Let's try roll call. It does appear to be working.
That's right. That's fine.
There it is.
I think we'll let you slide on that one.
There we go.
Very good. All members are now officially present. Under new business, under Section 8, item number A, discussion regarding the size of the Pitt County Board of Education tonight. Representative Brian Brown is here with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Wichard and members of the board, and a very special welcome, a warm welcome to you, Mr. Moore, and also Dr. Emery. I appreciate you being here, letting me be here tonight to discuss this important matter, and I appreciate the voices of 3 of our citizens here in Pitt County to also express their concerns in this matter. I don't, as a elected official myself, I certainly don't envy the task that you have as elected officials in this county, and certainly as elected officials in this county who deal with such an important issue, which is education of our children. I myself, a lot of folks don't know this, but I have an educator's heart. I went to college to be an educator. I went to college to be a teacher. That was what I went for. And it is something that's always been near and dear to my soul, is the education of our students. It's the foundation of everything we do. It's the foundation of our society. It's the foundation of our businesses. It's the foundation of everything. Many paths have taken me on a completely different road. Small business ownership, and now as a legislator and a representative of you. And I come here tonight in support of what so many constituents have come to me regarding, which is the reduction of this board, because of the issues surrounding this board. And again, I don't envy your task. As someone who rushed to the Speaker's office in the North Carolina House of Representatives and begged to be on anything education, I understand the important task of this. And I understand at what's stake here. as I went through this process of campaigning and the process of becoming an elected official, you know, you hear from so many people with so many thoughts. They have a lot of suggestions, some that are good, some that are okay, some you'll never act on in a million years. But as I took this endeavor as a small business owner and I looked out across the landscape of our society and our county, the things that I thought were going to be the things that knocked my door down, job creation, tax reform, they weren't the issues. That wasn't what my phone was ringing about. That wasn't what people were stepping into my office about in Raleigh, or walking in the door of my business about, or sending me emails about. They were talking to me about the concerns they have regarding the size of this board and what seems to be the dysfunction surrounding this board in representing our children, which is the most important aspect. I understand that this is not an easy task, and I understand that there's a lot of things on the line, some of which we'll talk about momentarily. But I urge you to listen to the community, because I am. I'm here before you tonight simply because the community has asked me to. And I urge you to do the same. I urge you to take action that was recommended tonight, to hold a public hearing, to hear from your constituents regarding this matter. I'll be the first to say, the way in which the legislation was handled previously was probably not the way that we should have done it. Nor do I think 7 members would probably be an appropriate representation of this county. And I fully support and will initiate a bill that supports the reduction of this board to 9 members, serving a 4-year term, taking office 30 days after election. And I would hope that you support that legislation. Not for yourselves, not for territory, but for the children of this county. I truly hope you reach out. And I'm going to do the same, beyond just speaking with you. I will hold a public roundtable forum on Friday, March 15th, and this, among a lot of other conversations, will be had that afternoon, but this will be the priority of that roundtable, the discussion. And I hope all voices come to the table, because that's what it's going to take, all voices, for everyone to be represented and everyone to be able to come and address myself as we move forward with this. I want to discuss just for a moment, if I could, and you'll notice I don't have a PowerPoint. It's not needed. This is a conversation. This isn't to dazzle you with graphs and charts. I mean, we can talk about the fact that this is the largest board in the state, or one of the largest boards in any of our neighboring states, or that even the 1.5 million students that's represented in the entire state of North Carolina, or 1.1 million children represented in New York City schools that's only served by a 7-member board. I think we have a problem here, and I think we need to address it. And I'll read you just a couple of emails that I received and pieces of mail that I received, and I could share with you so many. But I think these 2 particular items really kind of hit home for me. I received an email from someone regarding this. And she says, I have a concern with your desire to change the Pitt County Board of Education. I served on the board for 9 years, 2001 to 2010, and was chairman of the board my last 2 years in office. As I begin reading this, you can imagine I'm thinking to myself, not going so well so far. She says, during my tenure on the board, I did not support reducing the size of the school board. However, after seeing the recent difficulties they experienced when electing a chairman, I have reluctantly changed my opinion. Signed, Mary Grace Bright, one of your former members. I have a letter that was sent to me just this past week. And the beginning of the letter, I'll spare you. She goes into a bit of a conversation regarding a scathing letter to the editor that she wrote in the newspaper during my campaign. Not a supporter or a fan of myself. But she goes on to say, what I'm actually writing you about is something near and dear to my heart. the Pitt County School Board, I gave my working life trying to better our schools and our image statewide, and we saw changes. This board has embarrassed me beyond words. It is not all of them, but the largest number I have ever known who simply do not understand boardsmanship in any sense of the word. Part of the reason is that the size is untenable. When the two systems merged, the large board was created temporarily. When I was on it years ago, I had the votes from the board to decrease the size at my first meeting. When I arrived that evening, one of my votes had been pressured to change his vote. She goes on to say, I do not know what you can do, but I do know that one of the best things that could happen to our county would be to change the size of this board. And she goes on to recommend the same thing that we're recommending, reducing it to 9 members, 4-year terms, taking office 30 days after election. There are many, many of these that I can share with you. As I begin to kind of look through this as to exactly what I saw the issues being, and I have so many folks that will come to me and say, well, why don't you try to allow the board to self-reduce? And I think that that's a great idea, and I hope that you take that upon yourselves to do that. Because I think it will send a clear message, not only to the county, but to the students and parents of this county, that we mean business in real education reform in this county. But I kind of equate this to business. Pragmatic businessman. And I think about it in terms of looking at it from looking at my managers and saying, well, you have to self-reduce yourselves. You have to come up with the members in which you're going to roll off. There's no way they would do it. My managers would come back to me with every reason as to why they should stay employed and what functionality makes that be the best situation for our company. And I understand that. Faced with the same task, I don't know that it would be easy for me to make that decision either. Again, it brings me to the point that I don't envy the situation that we are in. But with that said, I hope you understand that I'm coming to you tonight with the respectful request to do this, because I will move forward with this legislation. There will be a lot of discussion regarding unitary status and how this might affect unitary status. And I understand that. But I would certainly like to talk a little bit about that as you guys will certainly have to address that moving forward. When looking at unitary status, some of the things the courts look at in regards to unitary status are student assignments, quality of education, faculty and staff assignments, physical facilities, transportation, and extracurricular activities. But nowhere does it state the size of your board. Better representation, clearer representation, more effective representation will equal a better and more effective school system with more transparency. I humbly ask you to move forward with this process with a swift hand. We don't know if you're going to get approval of unitary status. That much we don't know. But what we do know is that our schoolhouse doors will open tomorrow, and those students will walk in those classrooms, and those teachers will stand before those students and educate them and be affected by the decisions or lack of decisions that is made in this room by these members. When I sat down in Raleigh just a little while ago, I met with someone who wanted to bring a furniture manufacturer to North Carolina. And although I was in the room with him for different reasons, as I normally do, I strongly advocated for him to move his operation to Pitt County. And I think out of respect for my bold request, he walked away with his team and honored my request by looking into what Pitt County is, who Pitt County is, what we have to offer. And with my next meeting, he sat down in front of me and he politely asked me, not about transportation, not about our crime rate. He said, what's going on with your education system in Pitt County? to which I had no answer for him. So if you can sit here tonight and honestly self-reflect and say that the decisions and the dysfunction of this board and the size of this board is not hurting student achievement, then don't take up this resolution. If you can honestly sit here before your citizens and say that the dysfunction of this board and the size of this board is not hurting economic development, then don't take up this resolution. But if there is any doubt in your mind as to what this means, not only for your students, but for the future of Pitt County, then I would ask you to take up this resolution. And in one closing statement, this is not about territory, ladies and gentlemen. This is not about being ingrained in Pitt County. And yes, I am not from Pitt County. I'm a long-term resident of Ohio and have been in Pitt County for 8 years. And I received an email from a constituent who forwarded on an email from your chairman with that very statement in there. That the concern was that I was not from Pitt County, that I don't understand the complexities of these issues. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be from Pitt County to understand the complexities of these issues. This is not a Pitt County thing. And ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, if it wasn't for folks like myself moving in here to start small businesses, move into our medical communities, and teach in our university, Pitt County would not be Pitt County. I ask you to support this resolution. I ask you to support the citizens of this county. I ask you to support your students. Make the right decision. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Representative Brown.
We don't ask him any questions.
Did you want to answer any questions, Representative Brown?
Transparency.
Ms. Williams, I think you were first. Were the others? Ms. Williams?
I don't have to be the first, but I have my
I think you were the first to raise your hand.
Yes. Initially, Mr. Brown, when you came to Greenville a few weeks ago, you stated, the newspaper stated that you had at least 40 requests for downsizing. And I've been on this board 4 years, and I was just wondering if any of the people from my district was on your list. And the reason why I'm asking the question is because I have not received not one letter or phone call as to downsizing of the board.
Sure. And I appreciate your question. The
And I
article
think that's a matter of public record, and you can release that to us.
Well, actually, what you're referring to, ma'am, was a roundtable discussion that I held. It was actually an open forum.
Where was it?
It was at my place of business. It was an open invite. There was press releases on it. And actually, there was 51 individuals in that room, representing from stay-at-home moms to CEOs of companies around the community. And what I actually, and Chairman Witcher and I have had this conversation, I think it's actually unfortunate that that article came out, and here's why. That roundtable discussion was focused on tax reform, immigration, and a whole host of other issues surrounding our county and our state. However, there was a reporter in the room, and the very first question that was asked was, will you address the school board size? To which I answered, we are looking into it. The next day, the headline was, Brown's tasked with reducing the school board size. I understand your concerns, which once again is why I am reaching out on March 15th to open my doors, serve a free lunch, and obtain as much feedback as I possibly can. And I urge you as a board to do the same. Now, I can't help it if your constituents are in the room or are not in the room. We can't force that. All we can do is provide the means in which they can voice those concerns, of which I am planning to do. Again, I think when we looked at this situation previously, we didn't do enough of that. I'll be the first to say that. We need to do more of that. And I understand your concerns. If you don't hear it, why do it? I get that. But when a larger number of the constituents in this county do have this concern, we have to act on it. We can't turn a blind eye to it.
A larger number of constituents, what do those constituents represent? Do they represent the diversity of the constituency?
Sure. It's both city and county folks. It's both folks within the city and those lying out in the rural parts of the county. And the vast number of individuals highly support making the reduction to fit the same as the county commissioners, so that it coincides directly. And it wasn't 40 members. That was, I mean, it is a larger number of constituents who have reached out via phone call, office visits, emails, and so on.
Now, you are new to the General Assembly.
That's right.
And it seems like to me that anytime you're new to anybody, any particular governing board, that you should have at least invited this board to your meeting.
To your meeting, yeah.
That is what is just, common sense to me to do. And also, the reason I asked that, because I haven't heard from the people too, and a lot of, well, you've been here 8 years, and I'm wondering, did the people that shared with you, did they share with you the history of why we needed this size board to make sure that we were represented? So that's another whole piece. And my other concern is, how do you seek input? Because what I heard you say tonight, no matter what we decide, that you're going to do what you want to do anyway. So to me, that's a real issue, since you say you're supporting your constituency and we're a Board of Education, and you're not going to support, say, what we say. Say, for instance, we come up with different than what you feel. Well, you already say you're going to support, so why are you even asking us if you are going to not to support what we feel as a board and what we feel as constituencies? So that's what I'm asking you. Are those constituencies all races in this county? Are they Democrats, Republicans, or who are they? That's what I would like to have, that information. And not only that, I would like to also know, in terms of the unitary status piece, it seems like all this work we've done, you're not considering any of that. And to me, that's poor judgmentship in terms of any policymaker when they cannot put all the pieces together. Your big thing is the Chamber of Commerce, which they are business people, but that's just one component of the city and county. And also, there are parents out there, but we also have other parents out there other than those parents that you have shared tonight. And that's why I would like to know, too, who are those parents, where are they coming from? Because they haven't told us that, because we fought so long and hard to get us to this point, and no matter what board you serve, and I've served 22 years with the city of Greenville, by the way, and I feel like that all input should be considered. However the vote goes, then maybe that's it. But you're saying to me, that's the first thing that registered in my head, and all the people that are sitting here and that are looking at us by airwaves, that you are saying you're going to do what you wanted to do anyway. And my other question is, it seems like to me that you all are working to destroy or get rid of what we have worked so hard for. What are you doing new for education reform, as you say? So I'm trying to figure out that. I'm a parent in this system, have raised 2 very successful boys. What are you doing about the private agendas, the private schools and all of that? Because it seems like to me that it's not truly about what you say, education for all. You all have a totally different agenda, and we have been following you nationwide. So you can't fool all of us. So I just want to throw that out.
Well, I wish I would have brought a pad and paper up here so I could jot down those
Yes,
questions. So
but
I may have to have you revisit several of those as we
Oh,
go
yeah, I
through
would
here.
love
I can
to.
keep up, but sometimes not that.
Representative Brown, if I could just a moment. I do want to say, I think the comments this evening from the individuals that have spoken, Mayor Tripp, Ms. Herring, and Mr. Oslager, have been respectful, and I think they have presented a nice, even tone to this conversation. I do think the tone of the conversation has turned a bit in terms of away from decorum and we want to have, and I don't want this to turn into a referendum on this issue tonight. One of the issues that I'm concerned about in terms of hearing from teachers, and I do hope we can have a time where Representative Brown will come back again, but in terms of funding for teachers throughout the state, one of the issues that I just saw recently come out is the ranking of North Carolina in terms of the ranking slipping considerably in terms of the per pupil expenditure and the ranking rather of teacher pay in North Carolina now rate 49th out of the 50 states, and in terms of the discussions of other things. I do think, and one of the things that I want us to stay above board on with this board in terms of discussions is furthering student achievement, which I think you mentioned was one of the concerns of the individuals that came from business and industry to talk with you about. I want us to stay above that and work together in open transparency and have good discussion. But I do want us to keep in mind the boys and girls in our school district, the teachers that are, as I like to say, lacing up their shoes and going to work each day and doing the work. The environment has become very difficult in North Carolina for education. I think any number of teachers could come forward and talk about that. But I do want you to know, citizens of this county that are listening, that this board is committed to doing the work for educating our students, to providing the resources as a district, and then lobbying the state to assist us in those efforts. If you have comments that you'd like to make from that point forward, but I'd like for us to wrap that up.
Sure. And I appreciate your comments, Chairman Wichert, and I certainly will apologize to the board if my passion regarding this has derailed this in any way. And I would certainly love to come back as not only Vice Chair of Education, but also sitting on the Appropriations Subcommittee for Education, would love to come back and discuss per pupil expenditures with you at any given time. However, I would like to stay germane to the topic at hand, which is the reduction of the board, and to address your concerns and your comments, and I certainly understand your concerns. In terms of being invited to a meeting, once again, there was no meeting that was to be simply about board reduction. It was simply a comment that was made out of cue and in a headline that arose in the paper the next day. I am, however, standing before you tonight inviting you to attend a meeting on March 15th at Rep Express Catering, which is 805 Red Banks Road here in Greenville at 12 noon. There will be a light lunch provided, which always brings folks out. And I would anticipate that there will be a healthy session of conversation regarding this topic.
And when are you going to do one for all the constituency and invite them? Because that's what I've been waiting for as my representative now.
Ma'am, would that not be an opportunity for all constituents?
This will be. So everybody
That is
we want
what
to
has been
bring, we
stated
can
on
invite
numerous
them.
occasions this evening. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This is an open forum.
March the,
March 15th,
okay.
which is a Friday. That should give constituents ample opportunity to make arrangements to do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your
Are
time.
there any other
coming
questions?
before us tonight.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next on the agenda tonight, under subsection B of Section 8, is Operations Committee Report. Mr. Forbes and Mr. Bowyer. Mr. Bowyer, if you'd come forward, please.
Here, give a summary of our last meeting.
I know where it is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Forbes. The Operations Committee met on February 25th, 2013. Again, just going over briefly the number of items that were on there. The first item of discussion was an update on the Safety and Security Task Force of the district. Updated the 2 meetings that the task force has had so far, addressed some of the concerns of both the task force and different members of the community. One specific item was addressed with some of our schools with outside exit ways, hallways, possibly to prioritize those as we move forward in looking at some of the elementary schools with cameras and so on and so forth. We talked about some of the next steps of the committee and where we were going from there. The next item was a review of our out-of-capacity worksheets. We reviewed the 10-year out-of-capacity worksheets, both by attendance area and grade level, through the 2022-2023 school year. Highlighting the schools with the most severe out-of-capacity issues coming up is Chicago, D.H. Conley High School, and South Central High School. We also updated the committee on our negotiations for a future cell tower on the CMF's property. The committee authorized staff to move forward with that continued negotiation. We then addressed the deferred maintenance needs across the district in the area of HVAC, paving, roofing, windows, etc., totaling almost $33 million. Over $5 million of current needs in those subcategories alone. The last item on the agenda was an update on the Pirate Station, the possible interest in an outside private group in purchasing the piece of property along 14th Street to locate some caboose-type structures for the tailgating atmosphere that currently exist at the South Carolina University. So with that, be glad to answer any questions, but that's a brief update of our committee report.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Bowyer. Mr. Forbes. Next on the agenda is the Finance Committee report. Mr. Forrest and Mr. Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I asked Michael to come forward and lead us in that discussion. We had a meeting on Thursday, February the 28th. We had a quorum present, and we had several items up for discussion. And Michael, you take a lead role in any of them you feel like you want to, and I'll do the rest.
Finance Committee meeting material. It's a handout at your spot. What I'll do is be talking from that handout here tonight, starting with an overview from the first page. Following agenda items were discussed and approved at the February 28th, 2013 Finance Committee meeting and are being presented here tonight, March 4th, 2013 board meeting for approval. It includes funding for student security, that was item number 1, the budget for outside legal fees, which is item number 2, and the superintendent approval threshold for contracted services, which is item number 3. The notes from that meeting, which are a reflection of the discussions that was held at the Finance Committee, are included on the various pages following. Individuals in attendance at the Finance Committee meeting were Benji Forrest, the chairperson, Mildred Council, Sean Kinney, Barbara Owens, committee members, Jill Cambett's non-committee member, Dr. Emery, superintendent, and Cheryl Olmstead and myself as staff members. If we turn over to page 1 of the material, again, item number 1 was funding for student security. Following are the notes from the February 28th Finance Committee meeting concerning the funding for student security. The school resource officers, SROs, employed by the City of Greenville are funded by Pitt County Schools with state at-risk allotments. The City of Greenville received a grant that has been used the last 3 years to fund the school resource officers. The state at-risk funding freed up from the City of Greenville grant has been used over this time frame, last 3 years, to install security cameras at our middle schools and high schools. The city's grant was scheduled to end at the beginning of this current fiscal year, thereby returning the responsibility for the SROs back to Pitt County Schools. Approximately $400,000 in at-risk funding was set aside in this year's budget to fund the City of Greenville SROs. Last month, the City of Greenville's city attorney communicated that there was sufficient carryover within that grant remaining to cover the cost of the SROs for this fiscal year. So now Pitt County Schools is scheduled to take over responsibility for the SROs beginning with the 2013 fiscal year. So approximately $400,000 is available in this year's budget to purchase security equipment for the district schools. A motion was made and approved by the Finance Committee to recommend the full board approve the use of the $400,000 in at-risk funding to invest in student security as determined by the Safety and Operations Committee.
Any questions by the members? Mr. Cowan?
Do you need a motion?
I move that we adopt that
Second.
motion.
It's been moved and seconded.
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
I had a
In
question.
discussion, Ms. Williams?
Yes. Michael, the $400,000 of the at-risk funding, will that include like salaries?
No, that's
Anything?
just specifically designated to security. That $400,000 could be equipment, supplies, the cost of the cameras installed at the schools.
But not salaries?
No, no salaries.
Okay.
Michael, do you have that figure available in terms of what a camera system would cost, just so the board can kind of have an idea of what a building level camera system ballpark?
I do not. If I had to ballpark it, don't quote me on this, but I'm saying around $5,000 to $10,000 maybe.
For an individual
Yes.
set of cameras, and
That's
they
right.
run in sets,
I
correct?
think Aaron had an estimate to complete the elementary schools of somewhere in the $300,000 range.
And that's the point that I wanted to hit on. I think members of the public might say, well, you have $400,000 for security, that should adequately cover, but security costs in terms of building surveillance and so on and so forth are incredibly expensive.
And that's why the motion was put as determined by the Safety Security Operations Committee, because there's a lot more than just cameras that need to be considered in this overall process. We might have to prioritize the use of that funding.
Very good. And the understanding was this would not even be to the point of taking care of all of the needs that were there.
That's
Just
right,
the $1,000.
exactly. That's right. The second item on the agenda.
Excuse me just a moment before we carry any further. Any more discussion on that? Ms. Williams had asked a question any further. There being none further, let's vote on this particular issue to support that. Very good. Mr. Cowan?
The second item on the agenda starts on page 2 of your handout. Was a conversation with concerns to the budget for outside legal fees. Following are the notes from the February 28th Finance Committee meeting concerning the budget for outside legal fees. Number one, the current 2012-13 budget for outside legal fees stands as follows. $58,000 originally included in the budget, the appropriation of fund balance by the board of $100,000 for a total adjusted budget as it stands right now for this fiscal year of $158,000. The $100,000 of fund balance was appropriated by the board specifically designated to the cost of the unitary status case. The appropriation of the fund balance was disclosed to the board at the following times. It was presented to the full board at the October 1st, 2012 board meeting, including the budget resolution report submitted to the full board in October 2012, including the November 5th board agenda book, and it was presented to the full board in the budget resolution at November 5th, 2012 board meeting. Following is the year-to-date actual expenses for legal expenses, outside legal expenses that are broken down by category. I'm not going to read off all of those, but year-to-date expenditures total over $138,000, with the desegregation case, the unitary status case, making up over 87% of the total, $120,000. That represents services through December of this year. Outside legal expenses for the Board of Education between now and the end of the fiscal year are projected to be approximately $160,000 based on the following. There's been already $120,000 spent this year with concerns to the unitary status case. Just want to remind the board that that was scheduled to go to court in December. Now it looks like it could be as late as May or April, somewhere around that time frame that it could go. And again, that's $120,000 just through the month of December. There has been an addition of unbudgeted expenses for outside legal counsel to represent the board on the day-to-day operations. Again, that was unbudgeted. That at a cost of $235 roughly per hour. And the addition of unbudgeted expenses associated with the advertising of full-time employed attorney to represent the board. And at our Finance Committee meeting, I think it was discussed that would be somewhere around $4,000 itself. So if we turn over to page 3. The following is a summary of the appropriation of fund balance that would be needed in order to cover the outside legal expenses projected for the remainder of the year. Again, $158,000 budget that's currently in the budget right now, and again, that included $100,000 worth of fund balance appropriated to cover the cost of the unitary status case, which was projected to go to court in December. Actual year-to-date expenses total over $138,000. Projected remaining $160,000 due to carrying out the cost of the unitary status case and the outside legal expenses that are currently unbudgeted, for a total projected outside legal expense for this fiscal year of over $298,000, leaving the minimum additional fund balance appropriation needed within the budget of approximately $140,000. A motion was made and approved by the Finance Committee to recommend the full board approve the appropriation of $140,000 in fund balance to cover the outside legal expenses projected for the remainder of the fiscal year 2012-13.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Forrest.
I move we approve the recommendation of the Finance Committee for the $140,000.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Forrest and seconded by Mrs. Owens. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, let's vote on that issue, please. Thank you, Mr. Cowan.
The final item on the agenda that was up for approval, discussion and that was actually approved, was the superintendent approval threshold. And again, on page 4, I have the notes from the February 28th meeting where the conversation was held concerning the approval threshold for service contracts of the superintendent. At the February 18th board meeting, Mr. Forbes and Mr. Forrest asked that the Finance Committee look into reducing the amount of money the superintendent can approve without board approval. The approval threshold for contracts had been highlighted during a recent controversy surrounding the contracting of an external investigator to investigate a student assignment case. The Finance Committee was provided a copy of the current policy that states the superintendent has the authority to approve service contracts up to $90,000 without board approval. And they were also provided a list of 23 school systems that had approval thresholds similar to Pitt. The list included the likes of surrounding school systems such as Beaufort, Lenoir, Craven, and Edgecombe that all have approval thresholds of up to $90,000 for the superintendent. There was not a consensus among the board members present as to whether the board was made aware about actual contracting of the external investigator. Some said yes and some said no. A majority of the members present did agree that there was not a need to reduce the approval threshold of the superintendent as currently included in policy, thereby upholding the integrity of the current policy limits. At the committee meeting, there was discussion among board members present and the superintendent that the board chair at the time of the actual incident in question had been made aware of the use of the external investigator, and that was based off the fact that the committee felt that the superintendent should let the board chair know of any contracts entered into. The committee voted to recommend to the policy committee that the following language be added to the policy. Superintendent will inform the board chairperson of non-instructional contracts entered into by the superintendent, and the superintendent will submit a report on a quarterly basis that lists the contracts entered into by the superintendent. Based on the discussion of the committee, adding the above language would formalize in policy the actual process used by the superintendent in this particular situation to communicate contracts with the board chairperson, and would add the additional step to provide a report to the board on a quarterly basis.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Cowan.
Mr. Chair.
Very thorough. Mr. Forrest.
I'm going to throw a motion out there, and then if I get a second, I'd like to make a comment on it after.
Okay.
I move that we take the Finance Committee's recommendations as they relate to contracts and allow the Policy Committee to take those recommendations in developing policy to bring it back to the board.
Okay, so you're not asking for action on these items tonight, but allow it to go back
To the
policy
policy
for some
committee.
tweaking?
Correct.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. A motion's been made by Mr. Forrest and seconded by Mrs. Owens. Are there any further discussion? Ms. Little?
I would actually like to recommend, I don't know if this, where a motion is applicable, but that we leave the threshold where it is and the superintendent and let this issue be done. I think that it's been blown out of proportion. I think it's an example of micromanagement of our superintendent that has shown no example of being reckless with the discretionary fund, and I think we should move on from this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Any further comment, discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to comment, I'm sorry, did you have a? Okay. I would just like to comment that it was not unanimous consensus, but it was majority opinion that perhaps that the money issue as far as the amount of money was not the main issue. The issue basically might be one of communication, that we make sure that from now on, especially with non-instructional type of contracts. Instructional contracts, not that concerned with because they relate directly to the classroom, but non-instructional type of contracts, that there be a better and more nimble approach between the superintendent and the chairman so that we will be aware of those contracts. And that's the reason why that the majority opinion, it wasn't unanimous, but the majority opinion of the Finance Committee is recommending that the Policy Committee look at that and make policy to bring back to the board for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. Any further discussion?
I just want to make a comment that I think in this situation that communication was directed to the board. I think that there's this perception out there that none of that had occurred and that it's kind of undermining the communication that Dr. Emery had made to the chair at the time. That was not Mark, that was Billy. So I think that there's this perception out there that there was no communication, and I don't think that's fair to the superintendent that be the case. I don't mind changing the policy to protect everybody here as far as communication and set forth that moving forward. But I do think that it needs to be stated for the record that there was a communication there, and that there wasn't such a gap that's made out to be that nobody knew about this. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Are you proposing an amendment?
I don't need to.
There's no change.
Right, there's no change, really.
So we're sending
Yes,
it back to
no.
the policy, so it's still been
Thank
moved
you.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote on that issue, please.
Wait a minute, which, are we
Which
voting
issue
over
are we
here
voting
or
on?
over
Vote-
here?
vote- Mr., would you like it to be restated?
I just wanted to make sure we're voting on Mr. Forrest.
We're voting on Mr. Forrest's motion and seconded by Mrs.
Okay.
Owens.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I can restate it.
No, it's okay.
Do we need it restated for clarification? If not, let's vote. Yeah. Ms. Chemnitz, I think your clicker may not be working.
I did. She did.
Do it again.
Try a yes again and then.
Do the whole thing again?
Yeah, just pick it up and make sure it aims toward.
There it is.
Very good. Thank you so much. The motion carries. Next on the agenda is Mr. Kinney with the Policy Committee update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On this, for our pages, please look at the number that's the bottom number. There's one number on top of the other. So if we could turn to page 33, this is the second reading of the classified evaluation policy. The areas highlighted in bold are what's been changed. We've had a first reading on this. If there's no questions, Mr. Chair, I would have a motion. I would move that we adopt this policy, policy 7.206, move it from draft to final policy.
Second.
There's been a motion to adopt policy 7.206. It's been seconded. Who was the second? Mrs. Council. Is there any discussion on that? There being none, let's vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Kinney. Next item.
Thank you. The second one also was a second reading with policy 7.014, the conflict of interest policy. If you would turn to page 34. The changes were made on, you'll see on page 36 to Roman numeral 4, parts A and B. The language involving pecuniary interest has been stricken. We've had a first reading on this. Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt policy 7.014.
Mr. Kinney's made a motion to adopt policy 7.014. Is there a second? Mr. Forrest, being any further discussion? If not, let's vote on that. Very good, thank you. Graduation discussion, that's also Mr. Kinney and Ms. Pokey Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll handle this, Dr. Nolan, if you want. I just wanted to have a brief discussion. Last year during graduation, several of us as board members, everyone that I can remember that was present at one point or another during graduation, we discussed that perhaps as board members, we should wear our robes at all graduations, not talking about the school administrators or the schools, just us as board members. We thought it would be nice and thought I'd bring that before the board to for discussion and perhaps finalizing that with this being early March. I did not intend it to be a long discussion.
Okay. Dr. Nolan, the one question I would have is, this is an event for each of the high schools. My only concern on this would be is that the schools have some say in terms of what they wish to have for their ceremonies. Has there been any?
This would deal exclusively with the board. The schools, according to them, would like to still have their own autonomy. on whether they wear them or not. I'm speaking exclusively about the board.
Very good. Very good. Mr. Kenny has made an issue of that, so Mrs. Kamnitz?
We, just to sort of clarify, we all are provided with robes, or those of us who are attending the two schools that already require us to wear robes. So the robes are already there. There
Correct.
probably is not an additional cost associated with this because we're already getting the robes for other graduations.
Correct.
Correct. I would be supportive of that.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Education wear the robes at all graduation ceremonies for Pitt
Second.
County.
It's been moved by Mr. Kenny and seconded by Mrs. Little. Is there any further discussion on that? There being none, let's vote on that.
That's easy.
Ms. Kamnitz, I think you're, there you go. Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. At this time, we're to Section 9, which is comments by the superintendent. Dr. Emery.
Thank you. I do want to welcome Mr. Moore. We're so glad to have you around the table, and we appreciate the spirit in which you have begun your tenure. You set a nice tone for all of us, and we are glad to have you. I also want to thank North Pitt High School. We're very proud of all of our schools, but it's so nice to have them here, and particularly exciting to see a teacher, only a third-year teacher, step into a leadership role. It's very nice to see the impact of some of our new talent in Pitt County, so we thank them. I do want to publicize, this usually doesn't happen, the board knows this because Heather Mayo never bragged about herself, but on Friday our school system received yet again 2 more Blue Ribbon Awards for communication efforts. One was for our website, which we know is a good tool and our parents use it, and the other was for electronic media and how we have used that social media to help get the word out in our district. So we appreciate Marcia going in Heather's stead Friday to pick up these awards, but appreciate the work. It would be nice if we as a district could thank a vast department who made this happen, but I think it's really important to note that in a school system our size, it's been a one-man or a one-woman operation for many years, and a good job is done there. So we appreciate that very much. I do want to say publicly thank you to the Greenville Police Department. The grant that will provide additional dollars for safety purposes was initiated by the department, and the fact that they managed it well enough for us to get a 4th year is just great news for our school system. Between that and the creativity between Michael and Aaron and our operations committee with cell towers and other things, and last month's check presented to us by Mayor Thomas, we have about $500,000 that we can devote to safety and security efforts, and that's a real blessing in these times, so we appreciate that. And then I do want to say, while we quickly got through approving this policy, there is no way that we could relay the kind of hours and effort that went into the creation of a new classified employee evaluation, and those members around this board who know some of the struggles we had understand what a real progressive step it is to have a very tailored evaluation. And I just want to thank Ms. Jackson and Mr. Buck for the amount of time they put in here. And we brought in the employees of the year, and I really appreciate that you did that, from all of the classification areas, and they had an opportunity to look at this and have input and to endorse what came before you and was approved tonight. And I think that sets us as a leader in the state. We're ahead of the state in terms of really tailoring this to an instrument that helps our employees. So I would just want to say hats off to them as well. And then that word, I think that Mr. Moore used, so I'm going to start and end with Mr. Moore, that word ever learning. Oh, I put that in quotes. What a nice thing for us to think about, ever learning.
I got some more.
I like that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Emery. A couple of points tonight. One of the things I like to always say is thank you to our teachers and our administrators in the county that are working so hard with our students each and every day. I hope I never forget to say thank you to them for the hard work they're doing in increasingly difficult environments. I was very pleased to be able to participate, and this is kind of a point of pride for my son to participate with Ridgewood Elementary School over the past weekend in Odyssey of the Mind as a first grade student at Jacksonville Northside High School and Jacksonville Commons Middle School. Ridgewood took home our first place, and they will go on to be competing. The upper grades will go on to be competing at the statewide competition. So there are many points of pride for our school system that we're proud of and what our students and teachers are able to accomplish each day with our students. One of the issues that I pulled up from out of the under the dome section of the News and Observer that is near and dear, and several teachers had called me and pointed me to this direction, so I did print the article out to share it with the board tonight and for those that are inclined to listen. It says only 3 states are expected to spend less per student than North Carolina in the current school year, according to the latest rankings from the National Education Association. And so do take that with a grain of salt, and I'm sure there are other publications as well. But North Carolina's per pupil spending for the 12-13 school year is estimated at $8,433, with only 3 states less. The U.S. average is $11,068. The state also ranks number 48 in teacher salary among the 50 states in the District of Columbia, paying an average of $45,947. Only Oklahoma, Mississippi, and South Dakota pay less. The U.S. average is $56,383. The rankings in per pupil spending and average teacher salary represent a decline in the rankings from the previous year. And it goes on for other things, but there are some concerns in there that our teachers, I know, are concerned about as they're slipping place in terms of their statewide and nation ranking. Mr. Peden.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank Mike King and the North Pitt staff for coming tonight. And you know, the one thing that he keyed on, I don't know where everybody caught it or not, was, you know, it ain't been many years ago that we reduced the number of credits to graduate. And that outstanding, it really did a big bump for North Pitt. And about a week, 2 weeks ago, Mike was told me they got 20, about approximately 20 is just going to graduate this year that normally wouldn't have graduated with the 28 credits. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Peden. Ms. Williams?
Yes, I'd like to thank the staff from North Pitt for coming and updating. It's always a good thing to hear about good things about all of our schools, but it really made me feel well that, you know, it's in my district. So we're very proud of that, and our students and parents for their efforts. I also like to thank Ms. Jackson and Mr. Buck on the new policy put forth for eligibility for employment. I know a lot of work went into it, a lot of rereading of old information, and brought everything updated so that people won't have to necessarily worry about where they stand in their jobs. And I think that's very important to everyone, from our bus drivers and custodians up to our administrative staff. So it took a while to do, and I really do applaud your efforts in doing so. I'd like to welcome Mr. Moore to the board, but not only you, but your family, which they'll find out real soon. They'll find out real soon how much of your time will be devoted to helping to educate our kids. Other than that, thank Representative Brown for coming and sharing information with us, and we look forward to your March 15th meeting. That's it.
Ms. Kamnitz.
Welcome, Mr. Moore. Thank you, Mark, for sharing that under the dome information. I read it as well, and it's very disturbing when you have as your priority and close to your heart the education of students in the state of North Carolina. So I hope that maybe the coming budget will address some of those issues. I had the pleasure of reading to some students at the Boys and Girls Club last Friday on Read Across America Day. Mark was there as well, and Dr. Emery.
Representative Brown was there, and several other
Yes, he
members.
was with his daughter, and
John Davis.
yes, and Senator Davis. So we had a good showing, and the kids were appreciative. It's always fun to be out there on that day when wearing Dr. Seuss hats, and the kids were excited, and each one of them got to take home a book, compliments of the Pitt County Association of Educators. So it was a lovely time. I think of it as the Dick Tomey Memorial Boys and Girls Club reading because he loved it more than anything. But anyway, we missed him, but I enjoyed doing it with everyone else. I'd just like to make a comment. I've received a lot of questions about why it has taken the board so long to finally address the issue of unitary status. And I think that one of the answers to that question was apparent in our discussion about attorney fees. I think the board had been hesitant in past years to spend the kind of money that we knew it was going to take to go through this process of attaining unitary status. And so, you know, that's what we've got to do it, and it's the right thing to do and what we must do right now. And I hope the community will be understanding in terms of the amount that we're having to invest in this. We understand it's a very large amount, but it's what we got to do. In the spirit of Mary, I'd like to say that, you know, I know that the issue of board size is a very difficult one for all of us, but certainly it does seem like Representative Brown's forum on the 15th is a great opportunity to begin to listen to his constituents and some of ours on this issue. And, you know, it may be that if some of us are there, we may feel afterwards that we would like to take another step and have one ourselves just to sort of see what we hear. So I hope I'll see many of you there that day.
Ms. Little?
In the same tone of that, I think maybe, Brian, you might need to move that meeting. I think there'll be a lot of people there. So anyway, but it's a topic I'm very passionate about and have been since I ran for this office. So obviously I support it, and we'll proceed with Sean to organize a meeting, a listening session, and maybe collaborate with our people that kind of overlap with some of our schools, Mildred and Mr. Moore. So we'll get together on that. But so a date for that will be forthcoming. Also, in the Read Across America, I want to recognize some student or acknowledge that some students and mention the Dream Team. And this is a group of students from Rose High that, and there might be others in other schools, I'm not aware of it, but these are some student athletes that are organized by Mrs. Lewis, and they go out to our elementary schools and read to them during that day. So I think it's great that they do that and show an example and kind of a mentoring type of program. So thank you to them. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Ms. Waters?
I also would like to welcome Mr. Moore, and glad to have a full house on board. I want everybody to make a resolution to stay healthy, and let's do business as it ought to be done. And thank you, Mr. Brown. I also think you may not have enough room, at least not enough parking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Forbes.
I would like to congratulate North Pitt, you know, for the positive changes that they put in place for student achievement. That school's come a long ways in the last few years, and the way that they use their flex time in implementing certain skills to help students that really need. It's thinking outside the box, and I am sure that there are other high schools within the district that are doing some good things just like that. But this is a good way for the public to see what is happening in our high schools or in any of our high schools. And also, I think it serves well that this board acted on some changes in the last administration regarding graduation rate, because that has helped with the number of credits that our students were required to have. That's helped our graduation rate tremendously. And that school, as well as others, are truly data-driven. And also they use the PLCs like they should, and that is where they can collaborate with one another and share ideas. And if what works at North Pitt turns out well, I hope that they will share their ideas with other schools. Welcome, Mr. Moore. You've got some big shoes to fill.
Yes.
And it is your family. We should be saying, welcome to your family. And also, congratulations to Heather. And I also would like to thank Marsha for stepping in to Heather's place, this temporary transition, because I've seen you on TV quite a bit, and you've done a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Ms. Owens?
And I think it's your spirit, Marcia, that carries you a long way, and I thank you for that. Welcome to my seatmate, Mr.
Yes,
Moore.
ma'am.
I'm going to call you Robert.
That'd
Is
be
that
fine.
okay?
That'll be
That's
fine.
good. And I always think of Dick Tomey's for Dr. Seuss, because one of the most emphatic pictures that I've ever seen was of Dick reading with his Dr. Seuss hat on. And at his memorial, that was out in the foyer. So it did speak to once an educator, always an educator.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. Mr. Moore?
Thank you. This table kind of gets me back to in the stacks, if anybody know what I mean. When when we used to study long ago, you go back in the library in the stacks. That's where we got a lot of it from. Data-driven was mentioned, so I can't say anything. It's already written down here. Thank you. And that's how I perceive things, data-driven, with the 12-member versus 9, 7, or whatever. I'd like to see a little bit more than just what one county is doing versus the other, but let me see data to see where it all comes from. Odyssey of the mind, good. That brings me back. You all are getting me acclimated here. And I'll say thank you for again nominating me for this seat, and I do thank you for that. My claws are not quite embedded yet, so ever learning. I'd like to add one other thing to that, and then I'll pass it on. There was this composition that I heard some years ago, and it has helped my life a lot. And I'd like to just read it for the board and for everybody at large. Ralph Waldo Emerson, to have succeeded. And he put it kind of like this: to laugh often and love much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the approbation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to give of oneself, to leave the world a little better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exultation, to know that one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. It meant a lot to me when I grabbed it some years ago, and hopefully when reading this, it'll help, again, us be a better board. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to welcome Mr. Moore, Robert, to our board, and I knew I was going to like you, but not only are you a poet, but you voted just like I did all night. Yeah, I appreciate that. Also want to thank Mayor Tripp for being here tonight, although he did not represent all of Aden. I understand what a task it is to represent such a fine city and admirable town and community that I love and adore. And I want to thank Steve for being here tonight, representing himself and his opinion. I want to thank Mike King and his staff for being here. They are doing a tremendous job at North Pitt High School. I see it doing nothing but continuing to rise, be on the rise, and setting a leadership example for the rest of the county to follow, and I really appreciate that. Thanks to Representative Brian Brown for being here tonight. We appreciate his input and what he has to say. This is a very, very complex issue, and I think I want to go on record tonight. I said this one time before, but I think somebody mentioned tonight about some members that campaigned on the issue. I still have my webpage up. Still have my platform up, BenjiForrest.com. And I have 5 issues that I campaigned on 5 years ago, and it didn't mention board reduction. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. That was not my platform, board reduction. I do welcome the conversation and would be interested in it, and I've told my constituents that, but it's got to be done, if it's done, the right way, considering the entire community and not segments of a community. That's the only way that I would support anything like that. All of our audiences are appreciated, and all of our audiences are included and heard. So I just want to say, make that comment, make sure that gets in the paper. And I want to thank Commissioner Tom Johnson for being here tonight. He's always a steady source of support. He's always here. Tom, we appreciate you being here. Unitary status is a very, very important priority for this board this year. Man, if we had spent the time talking about unitary status tonight, Mr. Chairman, it would have been a wonderful thing to focus our energy on. And I want to thank the board for allowing the opportunity to provide more resources to make that happen. That was a tough vote tonight. And Mr. Moore, you made a good one.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate that. And then last but not least, I just want to echo out Worth about the Chicago Middle School robotics competition. They came in first place for that competition this year. They are a tremendous group of young people, and Mr. Chairman, I would love to see that that group to come in and maybe be a spotlight for education in the next few weeks or so. So having said all that, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Council.
Okay, thank you. Again, welcome, Mr. Moore, to the board, and thank you, board, for sharing. And since I've been here a year ago next month, I have not felt intimidated at all with the large board coming from a 7-member city council board to this board, because I feel like it has been very diverse, and we don't always agree, but we do agree to disagree on most things, and that's healthy. So I really like to thank each of you for, being who you are and representing who you are, but at least we do come together. We have come together on many things. Even I have come together on some things that I thought I wouldn't, but at the same time, we have heard, we listened, we've shared our opinions, and we may or may voted a different way, which is okay. That's why they sent us here. We didn't come here to all vote alike on everything, because if we did that, we wouldn't need a board at all if it's going to be all the same. So I just like to say to Mr. Brown, thank you for coming. Thank you for the first time coming to share with us. I thought you would have been before now, but you did come, and you are going to have a meeting, and that's great. And we would definitely get the word out, and you put it in the paper, and we're going to help you get it in the paper so people will be there, so you can hear from all of Pitt County, not just certain segments, because you do need to hear. And I'd just like to say to you, as a new representative of ours, that study some history, because some of us don't want to repeat some of that old racist history that has been in our county and in our nation. And so we're not going back to 1619, when we came to this country as slaves. So we want to just put that on the record for everybody to hear without a fight. So I just want to say that to you because it just seems to me that this administration, instead of, you say you're concerned about children, but are we really concerned about children, our faculty and our staff? We would not be fourth from the bottom in these total United States with the article that our chairman just shared with us. So think about that as we legislate, as we make decisions, and don't ever, from this day forward, if you come in to share something with any board, don't tell them you're going to do what you want to anyway. At least listen, because I felt helpless. You're going to do what you want to do anyway. So please rephrase that. You're young, you're learning, and you got a lot of learning to do. Maybe some constituents, you're serving them, but you're not serving all of us yet in the same manner, because I have never told a constituency that, you know, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. I at least listen and hear, and then I try to do the best for all the people, because we are all human. We worked in this county. This county has had a history of trying to make it right, and we don't need no group of people trying to set us back. Going back, we want to move forward in this whole nation. So I just want to share that with you and all others that are listening, Chamber included, and all the others, because I speak out too. So I just had to say that because, and I want all the people that are listening to, please come out and share your input, because I think he's going to hear some different input if all these folks come out. And I hope it would be considered. Next thing, I'd just like to thank Dr. Emery and her staff for doing a great job with looking after our employees. That has been one of my issues, because we all on this board, all our whole district is just as important as any one person. There's no one any less important. So I'm so happy that the staff has done a great job in making sure that that whole process is monitored. That was one of my issues, and I am a parent of this school system, and I do relate to Artists of the Mind, because I had children that participated in that too, and today they are scholars. So it does work for the new board members that got little children. It's an awesome, awesome thing to have your child into. So we want to know that we support artists and all those other great things. And North Pitt, that's my old school district where I grew up at the old Bethel Union High, and we salute the staff from my home area. Even though I'm not serving them directly, however, we serving all of this school system. But we thank North Pitt for doing a great job. And also, I'd just like to say our church, Holly Hill Original Free Will Baptist Church, had an awesome, awesome opening of our new Family Life Center. We had lots of children there from all over Pitt County, and we are planning to do more to help our school system and all of Pitt County to support our system and to serve more children. 4-H, this Benji's project, 4-H is doing great. We had our talent night last week. We had children there from all over Pitt County that either listened or participated in the talent. So we're doing a good job with working with our children to groom them to be the best. And some of our kids have already gotten scholarships to colleges already, and we're excited about that. And the last but not least, just like to say, the Shaw University Bears won the CIAA this past weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're very proud of my alma mater.
Mr. Kinney.
And I'm celebrating. I have my T-shirt on tonight too. Forgot to tell you. And one last thing, forgot one more thing. The United Negro College Fund. Could I make my last announcement,
Very
Mr.
quickly,
Chair,
please?
Okay. Is having our United Negro College Fund luncheon next Friday at the Divine Anointing Church International Fellowship Hall. And this is to help raise money and scholarships for students that attend Shaw University. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kinney.
Mr. Chair, that article you read, what did it say about the District of Columbia? Just real quick. Where are they? Were they one of the...
article here.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot there. I know you rearranged your papers.
It ranks 48 I'm sorry, there's 51, and the state of North Carolina ranked 48th in teacher pay.
And District of Columbia, I thought I heard you
It
mention.
didn't, it just included them in it. It did not mention where they were.
Okay, all right, thanks. Then my comment would have been.
But I would
about
imagine
the
it
district.
probably research that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. Well, Mr. Moore, welcome again. I heard you just thank everyone for nominating you for this position, but I would like to stress and to always remember, we really didn't nominate you. You came forward and you ran for that position. And that takes something. Any of us on this board could say that, so we're very glad you're here. I would like to thank all our public speakers tonight, and Representative Brown for being here. Thank you for your attendance tonight. I look forward to working with my seatmate Jennifer Little on having a listening session here soon, and perhaps partnering with others on a listening session on a multitude of educational issues. I don't want that to get wrapped into any one thing in particular, because I think it's important for us to have listening sessions. My colleague here, Ms. Council, already thanked Dr. Emery for looking into some matters with employees, and I wanted to thank you for that as well. I don't think that gets said enough. And then Dr. Emery also wanted to follow that up, and particularly thank you and Ms. Sheena Caton on some recent meetings you had with some people in the Walcoats community that I thought were very positive and very productive, with good supportive people, and showed that we are a good supportive school system with good supportive administrators, and that was just handled with the utmost of professionalism and with the care of our students in the forefront, and the whole community thanks you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Mr. Forbes?
I move that we go into closed session to prevent the disclosure of privileged information under FERPA 20 U.S.C. 1232G of the regulations or laws of the United States, NCGS 143-318, 111A1. Consider the qualifications, competence, performance, condition of appointment of a public officer or employee or prospective public office or employee, or hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against a public officer or employee, NCGS 143-318, 111A6, and approval of closed session minutes from February 4th and 18th meetings.
Very good.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Kamnitz was the second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, if you would vote, please. Vote. Mary? Got it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to the meeting tonight.
You should. Now we get to stay.